Top-notch cameras. For any smartphone brand wanting to be seen as a top contender, it's what matters most. And if your cameras aren't good enough, you can't hang with the big boys. One of those brands wanting a seat at the table is Vivo. And last year, when I reviewed their X50 Pro, I called it an exceptional camera phone for less. Well, Vivo is back with a 2021 follow-up with tweaks to its innovative built-in gimbal stabilization system and a new branding partnership with ZEISS. Hi, I'm MICHAELJOSH, your gadget matchmaker, helping you find the right device to match your needs. This is our vivo X60 Pro Plus review. Vivo X60 series phones come in a square box, just like last year's X50. Over here it says X60 Pro Plus, co-engineered with ZEISS. That's something we'll get into later. First, let's slice this open and lift the lid. Apart from all things ZEISS, the X60 Pro Plus is also equipped with Gimbal-Stabilization 2.0. Right off the bat, we have the phone itself. Nice. I really like that faux leather finish. Let's set it aside for now and see what else we're getting out of the box. A matte frosted hard case, SIM ejector tool, USB-C to USB-A cable, a 55-watt flash charge adapter. Don't mind the Chinese plug, this isn't the international version. Some wired USB-C earphones, extra ear tips, and a USB-C to headphone jack dongle. On the outside, the Vivo X60 series is pretty much unchanged from last year. It's the same exact shape, only the camera bump on its back is ever so slightly different. In fact, if you look here, even in terms of finish, there's no telling the new X50 Pro apart from this year's X60 Pro. I have no complaints, so why change it if it ain't broke? And this matte finish is the way to go. I particularly like the faux leather finish on my Pro Plus review unit. Last year's Pro Plus came in a camel brown finish. This year's X60 Pro Plus is a shade called Emperor Blue, which is more of a dark gray with a hint of blue to it. Ever since seeing vegan leather as an alternative to glass, I've been a fan and wonder why more brands don't do the same. It feels more practical than the fingerprint-loving glossy glass backs on most phones these days. It isn't slippery, and you don't have to worry about it smashing if dropped. Props to Vivo for leaning into their own design language and sticking to it. Before we continue, I want to revisit something I said up top. Unless your camera is up to par, you can't hang with the big boys. That's presuming everything else is also up to spec. Speaking of specs, the Vivo X60 Pro Plus ticks all the boxes. Snapdragon 888, 6.5-inch Full HD Plus AMOLED screen with a 120Hz refresh rate. There's 256 gigabytes of storage, the top-spec UFS 3.1 kind, and 12 gigabytes of RAM with an innovative feature called Extended RAM, which uses idle storage space as extra RAM. To be 100% transparent, I haven't really had the time to really push this phone to its limits, but in the days that I did use the phone, I've got to say, real-world use backs up this impressive resume of specs. Which brings us back to the beginning. Are its cameras up to snuff also? A formula that perhaps started with Nokia in its golden ages, many smartphone manufacturers have partnered with camera or lens companies to tout improvements to their camera systems. Most of the time, this partnership entails some sort of software cooperation more than anything else, and really, it's just a marketing ploy to leverage each other's brand names. Sometimes it works. It did wonders for Huawei. Very recently, OnePlus partnered with Hasselblad. But as I said in my review video, I don't think I noticed that big of a difference. You can click over here to watch that review. But first, keep watching this one. In the case of Vivo, I think it's more marketing too. The lenses on this phone have a ZEISS T coating, an innovation in photography when it was introduced many years ago. But that said, all lenses do come with some sort of coating. This one is supposed to be really good at removing artifacts and reducing reflection. There's also a portrait mode called Biotar, which mimics the rotational bokeh achieved by a ZEISS Biotar camera, a software trick. Finally, supposedly the imaging system is also ZEISS co-engineered, but it appears Vivo just had to pass ZEISS's certification tests. Have photos drastically improved from last year thanks to ZEISS? Well, let's take a look. They say the proof is in the pudding, but before we take a bite, there are 4 cameras on the X60 Pro Plus, 50 megapixel main camera with Samsung's GN1 sensor, same as the X50 Pro Plus from last year, a 48 megapixel ultra wide camera with the gimbal system, and a 114-degree field of view, a 32 megapixel portrait camera, and an 8 megapixel telephoto camera with 5x optical zoom and up to 60x hybrid zoom. Alright, I know I keep saying it, but now let's finally dive into some photo comparisons. First, let's demystify that portrait camera. Last year it was called the bokeh camera, but basically it's a 2x optical zoom lens, which is the default camera used for portrait shots, most likely because this is the most flattering focal length for portraits. But you can use other lenses for portraits, no problem. The camera that's actually marketed as a telephoto camera is this periscope camera over here. By the way, even if there's 5x, don't be afraid to use that 2x portrait camera for everyday zooming in situations. For example, recently I was inside a favorite cafe and I took this photo of this decorative star with lights. Here's 2.5x optical on the iPhone 12 Pro Max, 3x on the Samsung Galaxy S21 Ultra, and 5x on the X60 Pro Plus. See, it's way too close already. If you travel a lot, having a camera that can zoom in further is always a plus. Like in this photo of the Williamsburg North Side Piers, which I shot from much further away. You can also choose to extend further than the hardware allows, being able to zoom in digitally just like you would pinch out on a photo on your phone. While possible, I suggest cutting out at 30x. So here are all 3 phones again. Because the S21 Ultra also has a separate 10x optical zoom lens, its photo has the most detail, but the X60 Pro Plus does a good enough job, much better than the iPhone 12 Pro Max. Okay, now let's take a look at the photos from the cameras that I believe you'll use more. And just to refresh your memory, last year when I reviewed the X50 Pro, I said that its camera can indeed keep up with the best. Can the X60 Pro Plus do the same? Let's start with the ultra wide angle. Here's one of an old diner which shut down before COVID, but by the way, please support your local establishments and keep them open. It's impossible to pick one over the other here. So let's give all phones a more challenging shooting situation, shall we? This one, taken directly against the light, has the X50 Pro outshooting everyone else. Notice how it brought out the colors in Chai's clothing and accessories. The X60 Pro Plus also did a better job versus the Samsung and the iPhone. Here's another to test color accuracy and vibrance. Shout out to all my Colombian friends out there. All 3 did a good job. The sky on the X60 Pro Plus is whiter than the other 2, which brought in some bluer hues, but if you zoom in, it's not blown out because you can still see some cloud detail over here. I think where Vivo made the biggest improvement to the ultra-wide angle lens is shooting at night. Take a look at this random street shot. Notice how much more noticeably better the X60 Pro Plus's photos are versus the X50 Pro. And when you bring up the S21 Ultra and the iPhone 12 Pro Max, it's pretty even Stevens. Last but not least, let's take a look at the main lens. At first glance, nothing seems to be different, as can be seen in this outdoor shot at Blank Street Cafe, or this colored wall outside the National Sawdust Co., or this artsy shot further down the street. This indoor shot of some dried flowers, though, shows how much more shallow the depth of field on the X60 Pro Plus, more at par with the S21 Ultra. Blue hour is my favorite time of day, and if these next 2 samples are any indication, while all phones did a good job, the X60 Pro Plus begins to excel. I love how vibrant the tulips in this shot and how rich the sky is. Although I have to say, the iPhone matched the orange tulips color best. The bokeh 2 in this next shot is the creamiest of the lot. But what happens when the sun sets and you only have your surrounding lights to help you? Let's start with this photo of me. There's some light coming from a window to illuminate my face, but if you zoom in, you'll find that the S21 Ultra's photo is soft, the iPhone's photo is good but muted, while the X60 Pro Plus did an excellent job. In this next shot of a coupe glass, it's the other way around. The X50 and 60 produced a softer image, and the iPhone and Samsung aggressively tackled the warm lighting and correct it, giving you a cooler photo. Finally, an extreme low light test shot in my Lego room. With hardly any available light, all phones did a good job. The iPhone did the best, it's the sharpest, but I like how the X60 Pro Plus didn't mess with the white balance as much, and did a better job than the S21 Ultra. Next, let's take a look at video performance. If you recall last year, Vivo added a built-in gimbal to the X50 Pro, but left it out on the X50 Pro Plus. This year's versions of both phones now have it, and for those who aren't familiar, this is a gimbal. It helps stabilize cameras of all kinds. Vivo's revolutionary tech last year was to build in a similar system into a phone. This year, we were supposed to have gotten version 2.0, but how big of an improvement does it make? For starters, I will say that compared to last year's X50 Pro, the X60 Pro Plus's video also is noticeably more punchier in terms of colors and contrast, even on a rainy day like this. And yes, when I started running, the X60 Pro Plus did seem to do a better job at minimizing jitter. But hey, let's just enjoy a montage of more video shot on the X60 Pro Plus on a sunnier day here in New York. The vivo X60 Pro Plus comes with a 4,200 mAh battery, which in my test lasted me a day of average use. On heavier days outside, I had to charge before the end of the day. But charging was a breeze. With its bundled 55-watt adapter, I got to 35% in 10 minutes, 85% in 30. A full charge took well under an hour. So, is the vivo X60 Pro Plus your gadget match? It really depends on where you live in the world. As of the time this video is going live, I only have Indian pricing, and I'm flashing that on the screen now. Let me instead say this. If the goal of Vivo was to be seen as a competitor, then I believe the X60 Pro Plus achieves it. It's got a unique style, offers the headline features touted by its competitors, powerful processor, fast display, super fast charging, and in that all-important camera category, it rules. Based on my camera tests, conservatively, one might say it can keep up with the best. But if I were to be more generous, I'd say, in some cases, it does even better. And that's a big thing to say. The X60 Pro Plus is a smartphone deserving of the GadgetMatch seal of approval. And if it's cheaper than the Galaxy S21 Ultra or the iPhone 12 Pro Max where you live, I'd seriously consider it. Or if you haven't already, I'd definitely start paying more attention to Vivo. And that was our vivo X60 Pro Plus review. For more videos like this one, you guys know the drill. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit that bell icon so that you get notified as soon as we post new videos. Follow me on social media for all the behind-the-scenes fun stuff. And as always, make GadgetMatch.com your daily habit. Until the next video, I'm MICHAELJOSH. Thanks for dropping by.